Good morning, everyone. If each letter of the word teshuvah represents a pathway in teshuvah, what does the vav of teshuvah stand for? And the answer is ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha. You should love your fellow as yourself. And there's a nice story that is told that a king had two sons, and one was wayward. And at a very early age, he ran away from home and became something of a vagabond. And many years later, when the king was an old man and this lad had grown up, he found his way back to the palace. And he was in rags and disheveled and lined. It had quite a hard life. And he said to the guards at the gate that he wants to come in because he is the king's son. And the guards were very disbelieving because he didn't look at all like the king's son. But nevertheless, he was quite persuasive, and they decided they'd let the king decide. So they brought him before the king, and the king took one look at this person, and there was no recognition whatsoever. And he said to him, "You're not my son." He said, No, I am your son. I am your son. He said, "No, I'm sorry, you're not my son. There's nothing about you that resembles my son who disappeared all those years ago." And so it went on and on. In the meantime, the other brother had arrived. And because brothers have an instinct one for the other, the brother recognized his lost brother, and he turned to his father, the king, and he said to the king, "This is my brother." And the king said, "If the brother is a brother, then the father is a father." You can't have a person who says, "I love God, but I hate Jews." If we're brothers, then God is our Father. And so, ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha, caring for another person, is a pathway to loving God as well. And it is one of the paths of teshuvah. There's a story which was told by the Lubavitcher Rebbe at the very first moment, actually, when he took the position of leadership on that very first occasion in 1950. And he told a story about his ancestor, the Baal HaTanya, the famous Reb Shneur Zalman of Liadi, who was an extraordinarily learned and holy man. And the story had been kept secret for a number of generations, and he revealed it, and he said that one Yom Kippur Eve, Reb Shneur Zalman took his place in the shul at the beginning of the Kol Nidre prayers. He put in his talit, he began his preparations for the davening, and suddenly he stopped, and he removed his talit, and he left the shul. And he walked to the end of the town, and he entered a dilapidated cottage where a young mother was lying with a newborn child. And he chopped wood, and he made a fire to warm the house, and he prepared her some soup. And only when he was sure that she had everything that she needed, he returned back to the shul to pray to God. There were other people in the synagogue at the time, but nevertheless, he didn't instruct someone else to help the woman. He went to do it himself. And when did he do this? At the moment when he was wrapped in meditation before prayer, intensely bonded with God on Kol Nidre night. Because at that time, too, he was sensitive to the distress of another human being. And so you cannot separate the love of God from the love of man, and the love of man from the love of God. Ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha, the vav of teshuvah, is one of the pathways to come close to God.